Hello everyone, my name is Varsha and welcome to Programming Knowledge. So in the previous tutorial we learned about the XPath, what is XPath and the different types of XPath, that is the absolute XPath and the relative XPath. Also we learned the difference between the two. So in this tutorial we will understand about the XPath operators and functions. So let's get started. So previous tutorial we learned about the relative XPath and the absolute XPath. Let's implement that first on our IntelliJ IDEA IDE. So open your IntelliJ IDEA. So I will create a new Java class. I'll name it as Selenium Tutorials 6. Okay. So all I want to do is, this is the website like the ebay.com. All I want to do is I want to inspect this search box and the search button. Okay. So for that, in the previous tutorial, I explained about the chropath plugin. Now we're going to use the SelectorsHub plugin. See, the SelectorsHub plugin is the advanced version of the chropath, as the chropath is not having some of the features which this SelectorsHub plugin is having. So what we'll do is, how to install is write SelectorsHub Xpath. The first link that you get over here, I will provide the link in the description box. Simply just click to add to Chrome, add extension, and your SelectorsHub is added to your Chrome browser. So since we have installed our SelectorsHub plugin XPath on our browsers, so I'll just close this and I'll open it again. So let me inspect this. I'll inspect, and here you can see we have the SelectorsHub present over here. Okay, so now all I want to do is I want to inspect this search box and the search button. I will write the XPath for the search box and the search button, the absolute XPath as well as the relative XPath. So let's do it. Okay, so I have created this Selenium tutorial 6. This is the Java class that I have created in my Selenium package. The first statement that I have written is to open the Chrome browser, that is the system.set property, in which I have given the key value and the value of that is the path of the executable driver. Next, I have written the WebDriver driver is equal to new Chrome driver. Next, I have to navigate to the URL, that is the URL I have given over here. Next, I am maximizing the window through driver.manage.window.maximize command. Okay, so these are the three commands which is same in all the tutorials till now. You want to locate the search box, right, through relative XPath and absolute XPath. Let's first do the absolute XPath. Okay, so simply I'll just write driver.find element by .xpath, and I will write the absolute XPath over here. Let me inspect this element. Here it is, and here you can see we have the relative XPath, we have the ID, name, class name, JavaScript path, the absolute XPath, and the tag name that is given over here. In SelectorsHub, we have many features. There are a lot of features provided in SelectorsHub as compared to the chropath plugin. The chropath plugin is not having that much of features in it, so that is the reason why SelectorsHub is mostly used by many automation testers. Also, it supports the shadow DOM objects. Now, when I will be explaining about the shadow DOM, at that time we will be using it. But for now, let us focus on the absolute path and the relative XPath that we are doing right now. So this is the absolute XPath that we have. I'll simply click on copy, and here it is. I want to send some command to it, so I'll write send keys and I'll write t-shirts. Okay, so let's run this. I'll simply click on run. Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. The browser is maximized. And here you can see on the search box we have t-shirts written over here. Okay. So next what I want to do is I want to inspect this element, that is I want to click on the search button. Okay, so I will inspect this element, and here you can see we have the absolute XPath as well as the relative XPath. We will choose the absolute XPath, but here we'll write driver dot find element by dot XPath, and I will write my absolute XPath over here. And what I want to do is I want to click, right? So I will write click. So here it is. I am sending some command to the search box, that is the t-shirt command, and then I'm clicking on the search button. So let's run this. Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated, the browser is maximized, t-shirts, and here it's clicked. Okay. So it's working properly. Now let's do with relative XPath. I'll comment this. Okay, so now we'll do it relative XPath. I'll write driver dot find element by dot XPath, and I'm going to mention my relative XPath over here. So for the search box, here it is. We have the relative XPath which is written over here. I'll simply copy this and paste it over here. Okay, so be careful with this syntax. We have only the single quote over here. There is no double quote because Java does not support double quote. So if you mention double quote over here, it will not support. Here you see, right? It's in red color. So that's the reason why Java does not support double inside double quotes another double quote. So that's the reason why we're writing with single quotes. Okay. So be careful with that. Now this is the relative XPath for the search box, and what I want to do is I want to send some key, right? So I will write shorts over here. So I'll write shorts for men. Okay. Next I want to inspect the search button, right? For that I'll write find element by dot XPath. This is the search button. Let me inspect it. And here you can see we have the relative XPath given over here, right? So I'll copy it, paste it over here. And what action do I need to perform is I want to click on that button, right? So I will write click. Okay. Let's see if this runs. Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated and it's maximized. It's written shorts for men. And here it is. Okay. So it's working properly. So this is how you can inspect element through absolute XPath and the relative XPath. The difference between the absolute XPath and the relative XPath, we studied about that in the previous tutorial. Also their advantages and disadvantages. Okay. So in this tutorial mainly we will understand about the XPath operators and their functions. So the first thing is OR operator. Now when we implement this practically, at that time we will understand it very properly. So first let us understand the syntax of it. As in the previous tutorial, I explained about the XPath with multiple attributes. Here you can see that is the two slashes over here, the tag name that we want, that is input A or any of the tag name. @ attribute 1 is equal to value 1, @ attribute 2 is equal to value 2, and so on. This is how we will write XPath with multiple attributes. Now with the help of these multiple attributes, we are inserting some of the operators of XPath, that is the OR operator and the AND operator. Like here you can see, we have the two slashes over here, the tag name that we're using, that is the input, @ID, the attribute that we're using is ID and the value of it is the search _ query, or the OR operator which I have written over here. Then the second attribute that I'm using, @name, and the value of it is search. Okay, so this is how we will write the syntax with the operator in relative XPath. Now we will implement this method and then we will understand this table. So I'll just comment this. Okay. So now what I want is I will inspect this element and I'll try to send some of the keys of it, like I'll write t-shirts for men over here. So let's see if the element is identified or not. Okay, I'll click on inspect. Okay, so in this syntax here you can see we have the ID attribute as well as the name attribute present over here. Okay, so first let me write driver dot find element by dot XPath, and here I will write my relative XPath. So first the 2 slashes, the tag name that I want is input, open bracket. First I'm going to write @ID. So the value of the ID is this. Here you can see. So let me copy this. Next I'm going to write or, then I'm going to write @name attribute, the value of the name attribute, that is this. I will just simply copy it, paste it over here, dot send keys, and whatever keys I want to send is shirt for men. And let's see whether we can locate this element or not. So a Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, it's maximized, and here you can see shirts for men. That means this search box is located through OR operator. Okay, so now here you can see this A part, the ID part, @ID is the A, @name is the B part, right? Now if both the elements are true, that means the element is identified and it returns both the element, right? Now what if my first element is true and the second element is false? It returns A. So let's check this out. That means @ID is equal to this value is correct, whereas this value is not correct. So let's see what happens, whether we are able to locate the element or not. So I click on run. My browser is navigated, it's maximized, and here you can see shirts for men. The search box is inspected, it is identified. Even though if my name attribute, the value of the name attribute is not correct. Okay. Now what if my ID value is not correct? Like if I write this GH, let's see whether we can identify the element or not. The Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, it's maximized, and here you can see shirts for men. It's identified. Okay. Now what if the ID value is wrong and even the name value is wrong? Let's see if the element is identified or not. So our Chrome browser navigated and it's maximized. And here you can see there is no element over here, there is no key sent over here, that is the shirts for men. Why? Because my ID value as well as the name value is wrong. Okay. So this is what the OR operator is. If my A element, that is the ID value, is wrong as well as the name attribute value is wrong, that means it's not the same as it is specified in the HTML DOM structure, the element will not be identified. Whereas if my ID value is wrong but my name value is correct, the element is identified. Similarly, if my A value, that is the ID value, is right whereas my name value is wrong, still the element is identified. And if both are right, the element is identified. But if both are wrong, the element is not identified. So this is all about the OR operator. Now let's check out the AND operator. Okay, it's the same as it is OR, only the rules are a bit different. You will understand that practically. So we are testing for AND operator, so I'll just write AND over here. Let's see. So the ID value is same and the name value is also correct. So let's see if it is inspected, the element is inspected or not. Let me comment this. Okay. All right. My Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, it's maximized, and here you can see shirts for men. The search box is inspected as well as the command is sent, that is the shirts for women. So this means this line, this driver.find element, this function that we have written works well. Okay. Now what if I just write the ID value wrong, whereas the name value, the value of name attribute is correct. Okay. So let's see if the element is identified or not. So my Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated, it's maximized. Okay, there is no command sent over here. Okay, so if my ID is wrong and my name is right, that means the element is not identified. What if my ID value is correct whereas the name value is wrong? Let's see if the element is identified or not. So my Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, and it's maximized. Okay, so here you can see that my search box is not identified and there is no command sent over here. So your element cannot be identified if the ID value is right and the name value is wrong, as well as the ID value is wrong and the name value is right. Both of the ways the element is not found. What if both of them are wrong? Let's see. Let me inspect it. Click on run. The Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's maximized. And here you can see there is no command sent over here. Okay. So what this basically means is, if the A element, that is the ID attribute, is having the wrong value, as well as the name attribute is having the wrong value, the element is not identified. Similarly, if the A attribute, that is the ID attribute, is having the wrong value and the name attribute is having the right value, still the element is not identified. If the A attribute is having the correct value whereas the B attribute is having the wrong value, still the element is not identified. In case of AND operator, the element is only identified if the ID attribute is correct as well as the name attribute value is correct. Only then the element is identified. So that is the difference between the AND operator and the OR operator. Like here you can see the element is identified in all the cases except if both the attribute values are wrong. Okay, whereas over here it is the element is identified in only one case, that is both the ID as well as the name attribute value should be correct. That is, it should be the same as it is mentioned in the HTML DOM structure. So this is the difference between the OR operator and the AND operator. So the next function that we're going to study about is the contains function. Now the contains is used to identify an element. All the functions that we studied till now of XPath are used to identify an element. When we are familiar with some part of the attribute value of an element. Now this means that when we are familiar with some part of the attribute's value, that is, for example, let me show you the normal syntax of the relative XPath that we write is this, right? Two slashes, the tag name, @ID and the value. Like over here you can see 2 slashes, input, @ID, and the value that I have written is the first name. Now what if you want to use the contains method? When we are using the contains method, we will write @ID, first. That is only the partial text I will write in contains method. I don't need to write the full text. So this is a feature of contains. The next function that we're going to study is the starts with function. Now see, all these functions that we are studying, they are used dynamically. For dynamic elements they are used. Now what are dynamic elements? There are two types of elements. One is dynamic and one is static. Static elements are elements whose attributes value does not change. The value of the attribute does not change. Whereas the dynamic elements are the elements whose attribute value changes on refresh or any of the operation of the web page. Like if we click on that element, the value changes. For example, let us take up the start and the stop button. Like this is the button. If I click on start, the function will start. But after start, the button changes to stop. And when I click on stop, the function will stop and the button will change, the value will change to start. So this is how, this is what is the dynamic working of the elements on the web page. Now for example, like over here you can see we have the button like start and the stop. If I want to inspect the start button, I want to identify the start element. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write slash input, input @id is equal to start. This will identify, this will locate the start button only and not the stop button. Because after clicking on start, the value is changing to stop, right? So it will only identify the start button. What about stop? So for that, I have to write input @id is equal to stop. Over here also, it is identifying only the stop button and not the start button. So in this case, we will use the starts with operation. Now over here, you can see there are two things, there are two words in common, right? The S and T. These are the two words that are in common over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a starts with function. I'm going to write starts with @id and st. In this case, it will detect the start operation as well as the stop operation. So this is the advantage of starts with. Like here you can find, like here you can see, start with, find the element whose attribute value changes on refresh or any operation on the web page, like clicking the element on the web page. Now in this expression, matching the starting text of the attribute used to find the element whose attribute changes dynamically. Here the attribute value, this is the attribute value, right? That start and the stop. This attribute value is changing dynamically, right? So this is what we're going to do. We are going to match the starting text of the attribute values. This is the starting text, which is the similar, right? So always keep in mind that the starting value of the attribute should be similar. Then only starts with function will work. We can also find element whose attribute value is static, which does not change, but this works properly with dynamic functions. Okay. So let's implement this first. Now this is the page, this is the element that I want to inspect. I'll click on inspect and here it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the XPath over here, okay, for contains method. So let me write 2 slashes, the tag name, input, then contains, open brackets, @ I'll use name. Let me use name attribute. So I'll write name, comma, single quotes, underscore nkw. Here you can see this value. Let me copy this. I'll close the bracket, and here you can see we have one element matching, which shows one element matching. This element is matching. It is highlighted, right? So this is the element which is matched over here. Now if I'm using contains, as I said, I can use partial text, right? So what I'll do, I'll just remove W, and still you can see one element matching. And still you can see one element matching. I removed the K as well. So let's see if it is detecting this element or not. I will copy this. Write driver dot find element by dot XPath, and I will mention this, and I want to send some value to it, so I'll write shirts for kids. So my Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's maximized. And here you can see we have the value written over here, shirts for kids. So this means that the search box that I have inspected over here through contains method is working properly. Okay, we can locate the element over here. So this is how we will use contains method. Now if I use starts with, I'll just simply remove this contains and write starts with. And here you can see. So since Selectors Hubs gives us the feature of writing the XPath over here as well in the XPath text box. So I have written input starts with @name, and here you can see it is starting with _n, right? So let me write underscore, and here you can see we have one element matching. Now what if I remove n? And here you can see we have three elements matching, which is matching to underscore. We can see the three elements are given over here. The first element is over here, this is the second element, and this is the third element. Since we are inspecting this third element, so I'll just include n. See, it doesn't matter over here what type of value you are writing over here. These functions are used only for dynamically functions. Now in the next tutorial, when you learn about the advanced XPath, there you will see many dynamic elements. So at that point, we will use starts with method. Okay, I'll just copy this element and let's see if it's working well or not. Driver dot find element by dot XPath, and here I will include the element. Now let me send some keys. T-shirts for kids. Let me comment this and let's see if it's working well or not. So our Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated and it's maximized, and here you can see T-shirts for kids. This means that my search box, the element that I want to inspect, that is the search box, is inspected through the starts with method. Okay, see, I'm just showing the demo of using these functions, that how you can use these functions. The next method that we're going to understand is the next function that we're going to study is the text function. Now see, text is an inbuilt function of the Selenium WebDriver, and it is frequently used, and it is one of the most popular XPath function that is used. And it is basically used to locate elements, the elements that we want to locate, right, based on the text of the web element. Like here you can see we have the user ID and the element that I want to locate. This is the text box that I want to locate. The text of the web element. The text of the web element is the user ID over here. By using this text, I'm going to identify this web element. Okay, this is what text function is. Over here, like you can see, like if I inspect this element, this is the element that I'm inspecting. We have the TD tag, inside the TR tag we have the TD, a line is equal to right, and the text that is used, that is a user ID. So if I want to inspect this element, how I'm going to write is the 2 slashes TD, the text function, the value of the text function is the user ID. This is how I'm going to write the text function. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do the demo of this. I'll comment this. So this is the cell link that I want to click on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect this element and I'll write the XPath over here. The tag that we're using is the A tag. It's a link. So A tag, and I'm going to write text. Here you can see. Okay, so here we can see that is the one element matching. So I'm going to copy this XPath and I'll paste it over here. That will write driver dot find element by dot XPath. Paste it over here, and the operation that I want to perform is I want to click on this link. Okay, so let's see. So our Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated and it's maximized, and here you can see the cell link is clicked. Okay. Now suppose if I want to use the contains and the text method, both of them, I'll write contains open bracket, then I'll write text function, comma, then I'll write cell, close your brackets, and here you can see. Here you can see we have 6 elements that is matching it. Cell, 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 selling, then we have saved sellers, then cell, seller information center, seller information center. Now see, here you can see we have used the contains method. When we were using the text method, only one element was identified. But when we are using the contains method, the 6 elements are matching. This means this cell word that we are using. See here, I have used the contains method. If I'm using contains method, I am finding 6 elements. When I was using the text method only, I found only one element matching. Whereas if I'm using the contains method, there are 6 elements that is matching over here. Why? Because in all these matching elements, there are some words that is cell. Like over here, we have the cell, we have selling, we have saved sellers, we have cell over here again, we have the seller information center, then we have the seller information center. So if you're using contains and text, so this is the difference. Whereas if I use starts with over here, there are 3 elements matching over here. Here you can see we have cell, seller, seller information center. There are 3 elements that is matching to starts with. So this is how you can use text function with all the functions that I have explained over here with contains, start and starts with. Okay. So but the only difference will be that we will find multiple elements through these. If we use starts with text, and if we use contains with text. So these were the functions that we studied. Let's see the final conclusion of it. Which function to use when? So when do we use contains method in XPath? We will use the contains method if you know the partial constant visible text or attribute. Now what is this partial constant visible text? Partial constant visible text means that if there is any text, like suppose there is an element which you want to identify, there is a text for it, right? That is what we are using in contains method. Like here you can see the contains method, the text which we are using the partial constant text. This first is the constant text, even name is the constant text. The contains method and the starts method is used dynamically. So we will use only the words that are constant. Okay. Similarly goes with start with. Over here the words that are constant is S and T, whereas the other words are changing, right? Because start, as we are starting the button, it is changing to stop. So that value is changing dynamically. Okay. So we will use the contains method in XPath if you know the partial constant visible text. It should be constant. It should not be dynamically. Okay. Next, we will use the starts with method if you know the initial partial constant visible text or the attribute. The initial partial constant text means that, like over here, there is an initial constant text, right? That is the ST. Here also ST. Rest all the words are changing. Okay. So the partial initial constant text is used in starts with. Next, we can use the contains method and the starts with method with absolute text or attribute also. This means that we can write the first name as well. Similarly for start with, we can write start or stop as well. But the only problem will be that it will identify that element only for starts with. Okay. Next, we can use the text method in XPath if you're aware of the absolute visible text. Now here in the text method, we cannot write the partial text. Like over here, you can see you cannot use text method with the partial text. Like in the contains method, we were writing the partial text, right? Whereas in text method, we are not allowed to use the partial text. Like over here, we were identifying the element cell, right? We were clicking the element cell in the demo. Now if I write SEL only, it will not identify if you're using the text method, but in contains method it will identify. Okay, so this is a difference between the two. Next, we cannot make use of starts with method if the initial text is constantly changing. Now for example, this ST word is changing constantly. Now suppose, just imagine we have a button named activated and deactivated. If you're clicking on activate button, the process is activated and the value of that button is changing to deactivate. So the first words are changing, right? So in that case, you cannot use starts with function. So this is the conclusion of the entire tutorial that we learned. That is the contains method, the starts with method, the text method. Till now we have learned so much about XPath. We have learned what is XPath, what are the different types of XPath, that is the relative XPath, the absolute XPath, the difference between the relative and absolute XPath, the functions of XPath, that is the contains, the starts with, the text method. So this is not all about XPath. The main part about XPath is the advanced XPath functions that we are going to study. That is this is the graph that we're going to study in the next tutorial. That is the XPath axis, in which we have the ancestors, we have the parent, we have the child, we have the following siblings, we have the preceding siblings. So this entire thing we're going to study in the HTML DOM structure, and we will also do the demo of it. So this is what about the next tutorial. So until then, please like, share and subscribe this video. Thank you.